Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Sharifah Zahra Khalid, a PhD student from AHAS KRKHS. I'm also one of the ESCO members of Postgraduate Student Society IIUM, and I'll be your Master of Ceremony for today's event. Okay, on behalf of the organizing committees, I would like to extend our appreciation for your presence today. Thank you for taking your time to join us. All right, for today's session, it is a part of CPS Unified Research Methodology sharing series where we explore transformative academic frameworks that could contribute to shape a resilient future. This time, we focus on sustainable scholarship shaping academia for a resilient tomorrow. Our speaker today will shed light on creating academic frameworks and practices into academic research to ensure long-term relevance that could contribute to solving current challenges and future uncertainties. It is an honor for me to introduce our esteemed speakers today, Associate Professor Dr. Nurul Ain Hidayah binti Abbas. Associate Professor Dr. Nurul Ain Hidayah is a lecturer from the Faculty of Human Development at Universiti Pendidikan Sultan Idris, or UPSI, in Tanjung Malim, Perak. She has an extensive academic background and has made significant contributions to the studies of emotional intelligence, stress and conflict management, as well as psychological well-being of humans. All right, Dr. Nurul Ain has obtained her bachelor degrees in cognitive science from the University of Malaysia, Sarawak. She then furthered her master degree in industrial psychology at University of Wisconsin-Stout, USA, before she earning her PhD in psychology from Philipps University Marburg, Germany. She received an international level award for developing a system known as MyScreen, or Malaysia Psychometric Inventory for Care and Education in 2022. Apart from that, she also received a recognition from UPSI on the same year for the Best Journal Award, Aspiring category. She is an active researcher where she has published articles, books, presenting papers for conferences. With over 40 publications in English and in Malay, Dr. Nurul Ain has made invaluable contributions to the discourse on psychological development and management, especially among working adults. Without further ado, I invite Associate Professor Dr. Nurul Ain Hidayah to share her insight with us. Doctor, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Sharifah Zahra Khalid, for the beautiful presentation. I am very happy, feeling happy about what is sustainable scholarship is. All right, then we're gonna go to the crisis in academia. So we're gonna have a look what actually the challenges that we are experiencing at the moment. I'm pretty sure these are not the only concerns or the problems that we are facing only in Malaysia. I believe in other countries as well. And I remember it perfectly well that one of the problems was I was talking and having this discussion with my advisors and my peers when I was in Germany at that time. So yeah, I remember that as what we expected it to be, it still remains one of the big issues. So we're gonna find out what actually the issue is. Number 3, we're gonna talk as well about sustainable academia. We are here. We cannot run away with all these challenges and the crisis that we have. What we can do is that we're gonna try to overcome it. And then when I mention we, not only for the postgraduate students, but also for the lecturers as well. Pretty much maybe our challenges are the same, but of course we don't have a supervisor who's gonna like maybe keep pushing us to publish. But then, other challenges are also the same, and we're gonna find out about that one more. And the next one would be the designing for resilience. So Designing for resilience, I actually will say, mention to you all these challenges, all these issues, how are we gonna like address them? What are the sources that we can do? And especially when we talk about postgraduate students, and I believe that the majority of you guys here are perhaps matured students. What I mean by matured students is that, you know, you already have your own immediate families, you have your children, you have also, you know, to take care of your financial income and those kind of stuff. At the same time, you're juggling as well with the, academic life. You know, on top of that, assuming that you receive like scholarships from your own countries, right? And you have to get it done like in a certain period. So how you're able to juggle all of that at the same time, you want to maintain that sustainable scholarship. So hopefully we're gonna have like a great discussion about that issue. I also would be very happy to know, some of your thoughts and insights as well in terms of this resilience for sustainable scholarship. Now, well, why are we here? Okay. Well, why are we here? Why do we need to, bother about sustainable scholarship? Why is it important for us? We just here to grad? When I ask my postgraduate students, sometimes they're just gonna say, "Oh, Dr. Nurul, I just need to get my PhD, or I just need to get to my master's because if I get my master's or if I get my PhD, then I'll be able to increase my salary." Well, maybe that is one part of that, but another reason is that maybe if we do not know yet, we're actually also having the crisis of our own selves. And like I mentioned earlier, academia is here, academic is here. We cannot run away from that, especially when we talk about, postgraduate students, for example, you probably have like what 4 years, and if you're postdoc students too, you're pretty much working in the IIUM, right? So why are we here is that we want to try to bridge the gap, you see? So there is this a reality of the system of academic that we have here in Malaysia particularly, but at the same time, we try to bridge that because what we want, as what Sharifah mentioned just now, is how you shape it, right? What we want. We are the one that actually can control. Well, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, but what I'm saying is that we have to put the effort to, step it up and then change and shape whatever the idealistic world of academia is. So that's pretty much why we're here. We need to know what are the challenges, what are the issues that we need to overcome, that we need to address in order for us to, this is gotta stop. I'm gonna make sure that once I'm the lecturer or I'm the supervisor, I'm the manager, once you're done with your postgraduate studies, then you're not gonna be doing the same thing with your subordinates or with your students or with your even in your workplace. So that's pretty much why are we still here. So maybe I can share with you two hadith that I feel that is very much relevant with our scope for today. And the first one is that Sunnah Ibn Hajar hadith 224 is that seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. Oh, I don't know why I'm just feel touched. Because I think some of you might know, or some of you might not know that there are minority of the Malaysians who feel that it's not really important for us to pursue our studies, just gonna give us headache or unnecessary stress. So why bother? But actually it is more than that. It might also means that you don't have to be like, doing your master's or PhD in the tertiary education, but you need to always strive to get some knowledge. All right. So please, believe in that. And then every single thing that you do, is still ibadah as well. Okay. And then by Surat Taha is that my Lord increase me in knowledge. So we always have to pray and then feels that every single day we're going to bring back something, the knowledge, for example, and then we can give back to the community. Now, the question is that what is sustainable scholarship? Well, sustainable scholarship is not only holistically about the impact or just looking at the output from this research, what actually the outputs. Oh, you can get like a maybe 500,000 K research grant, or we can actually publish like papers in a very good journals high index because we have like maybe great research objectives or great respondents that we got. So it's not only that, but it's also like I mentioned, holistically, it is about the well-being, right? Not only in terms of the respondents, the researchers as well, the academic world, obviously. It's also about the equity and as well as intellectual longevity. Now, I'm a firm believer, just like I mentioned earlier, that we always have to strive for being the better version of ourselves. Okay, don't try to get ourselves complacent in that specific situations. Well, that's actually what I'm trying to tell myself pretty much. So the first one is that when you talk about sustainable scholarship, it must have like a enduring, meaningful research. Why this research needs to be conducted? Yeah, I just have to do this research because I want to do my PhD. Or I just need to, it's my performance appraisals, managers or my funders need me to do my PhD, and that's why I do it. It doesn't really matter for me who's going to be the respondents or the research or what would be the impact. Well, believe it or not, it has to be very meaningful research. It must have purpose, why you have to do certain kind of ways. And obviously that, I'm pretty sure that you guys know this. This only can be seen and be retrieved from very good problem statement. One of the things that I want students, the postgraduate students, and maybe some of are here is actually also my students, is that because I'm one of the committee members for human research ethics in UPSI, and I remember that there was a time that I went to USM, University of Science Malaysia, and one of the one of the members of the human research ethics there, and she's retired now. Her name is Associate Professor Dr. Siti. And she said to me that, you know what, Nurul, even in USM, what we will do is that when we want to review ethics application, of course, the authors or the applicants will give their proposals, right? So we're going to look at the proposal and we're going to say that, okay, well, this research or this proposal has been done before. Why, there is a need to come up with another one? There is no like specific contributions there. But so why we need to have another research? Just because that, why? Okay, is it just because that, like I mentioned earlier, and then because maybe part of it is because that I had that discussion with another ethics committee member. So she was very concerned about the well-being of the respondents. Okay. And number two, when you talk about sustainable scholarship as well, it has to be ethically and environmentally responsible. So not only ethically, but environmentally. I remember, and I have to share this with you, when I watched some clips of this gas pipeline explosion that just happened like last week. We were very sorry, we very sympathized with all those victims and the pets. But a part of me, I also feel so sad for the plantations there, for the trees there. MashaAllah, I just like lost all the words, and the amount of like people who cared about it, they just, yeah, it was very such a heartbreaking for me to see like all the trees were just destroyed because of the explosions, right? So, okay, so what I'm just going to share with you, this is a picture of yang berbahagia, Professor Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. Nur Ain Ghazali, who is the director of MINDA UKM. And if I'm not mistaken, they are responsible to choose or to select who's going to be the next vice chancellor for each of the university. Okay, maybe the public universities or privates, I'm not really sure, but I think that's what actually he told us at that time. And this conference is pretty much about empowerment of women young leaders. Don't guess my age, but yeah, they actually consider me still young. But anyway, one of the things that I want to let you guys know, the students to know, which actually have a huge impact on me, is that he said clearly that, there are many papers, researchers out there. The Malaysian higher education or Malaysia KPT gave a lot of money to people, to lecturers, to students, to come up with research. But can we see now what are the real world problems that we are addressing? Like are the issues that in Malaysia are 110% been resolved? So I think that would be like one of the great takeaway that I, got from that conference. And I feel that I need to also deliver this to these postgraduate students who are obviously is gonna, embark or already embarking in a research. So I can sense that he was pretty much well, not really upset, but he wished that, all this research should be meaningful, all right, and are able to address and rectify the challenges that Malaysia have, right? The next one that I just want to share, this is not only something that I hope will never happen again, and this is like almost like 10 years ago. It is about in 4 researchers falsified science data, says UM. Okay, you can actually Google it up and then have a look about it. But what I want to say is that the unethical behaviors, and I believe, in my opinion, this is also one of the reasons, or one of the reasons why like these things could happen is because they feel or they need that they have to publish or perish, and they have to do it like fast. Okay, so whatever data, whatever things that they can do, they just do it. All right, so if I can actually close up here, and then if you guys can see it, it says here is that a committee set up by the university to conduct an in-depth investigation into the allegations that the group had allegedly falsified research data, found that there were duplication and or manipulation of almost all figures, images, and graphs within the original scientific reports paper and across 3 other papers. All right. So yeah, they've been, caught red-handed. And we obviously still have these problems. I believe like maybe, well, kind of do not want to say it, maybe like almost every university have the same problem, right? But then you might gonna like ask, how can we sure that we are doing the ethical things or not? We're not really very aware of that. So again, you can just Google it up. Okay, there is this a Malaysian Code of Responsible Conduct in Research that you can actually go through and have a review about it. It's very comprehensive. So pretty much they just, gonna let you know what are the normal practice, what are the good things that you can do if when you want to do your research. So hopefully not like this, okay? All right. So another one thing that I want to share with you, maybe, well, obviously because I'm a psychologist, so I'm very much familiar with this an ethical experiment. This is done by Zimbardo. Maybe some of you are actually also psychology students as well who are very familiar with this experiment. Briefly mention this experiment. This experiment was successful in terms of verifying what the researcher, who was Zimbardo, claimed, which is, the rules of conformity, which is social psychology, by the way. But what happened was that when Zimbardo, the researcher, assigned 2 groups of students, they were students. One group of students were assigned roles as guards at the prisoner, and the other group of students were assigned as the persons that were doing bad things, right? Like the prisoners and also the guards. So prisoners and then the guards. So what happened is that they were in Malay we say menjiwai. Okay, bukan jiwa tapi menjiwai. So they were absorbing, embracing the rules in such a way that the research or the experiment was supposed to be done in like 2 weeks, but then it has to be cut short because when they were embracing the rules, they did it in such a way that it leads to the mistreatment to the group of students that being the prisoners. because they actually behave like a guard themselves. So you can also Google it up. But what happened was that the group of students who were being the prisoners experiencing emotional mistreatment. One of them had a traumatic incidents, depressions, and those kind of stuff. You can also obviously look it up later. But this is one of the, I believe, experiment or research that it was successful in kind of way of verifying the conformity when those prisoners and guards, really embrace the rules, and then they actually conform into one another, but at the same time, it was unethical. So it's kind of like, hey, do you want to, prove that your research is going to bring impact, or you want to be, one of the unethical researchers? Okay, so yeah, this is one of the example about it. Okay, so if we look it back at what is a sustainable scholarship, the third one would be mentally and emotionally sustainable, right? And then the fourth one would be socially inclusive and equitable. Now, when we talk about mentally and emotionally sustainable, just share this with the rest of you. I am a coffee lover. I always need my coffee. So perhaps we are being alive every single day and being waken up by strong coffee, right? But on a serious note, okay, we need to have this support, not only in terms of financial support, but also in terms of emotional support for us, again, as the mature student, for example, that have other commitment to, proceed and then move on and then try to enjoy their journey. Okay, so the next one I want to share with you as well. This is related with socially inclusive and equitable. All right, so this is the launch of my research on return to work employees. Okay, so return to work programs in such a way that, like I mentioned earlier, for those employees who maybe experienced such injuries or having any problems during their working period, then how are we going to help them? Okay, maybe for example, the particular employee, before he, was able to walk around, he was able to use his feet, and now he has actually wheelchair bounded. So the question is that, are we ready for it? Is the institution or is the organization ready for it? So this is one of the researchers that I mentioned to you in terms of it has to be socially inclusive and equitable. So this is how you know that, this is actually sustainable scholarship. This is what we actually strive to do. Okay, so the next one will be the crisis in academia. So I mentioned earlier, there are issues, there are problems, and yes, this is like maybe some of the problems already were there years before, okay? But I think we can actually have this discussion about it now. The first one is publish or perish culture. Now, not only lecturers, not only researchers, but I know that even for postgraduate students, in UPSI, for example, they actually required to publish papers in order for them to graduate. The PhD students specifically. So that is even more challenging with the research universities. But as a lecturer or as a researcher, what can we do about it? Okay, because there is a need for us to publish, and if we don't publish, then some people might say that you're not supposed to be a lecturer, you're just supposed to be a teacher. Okay. And the second one, because of that, because we try to always publish, or you're gonna be perish. So we always try to strive for that, okay, in such a kind of way that we are somehow neglect the other commitment that we have. But when there are some problems, that is where the mental health issues come into play. And we know that when these mental health, issues are not addressed appropriately, then it can get any worse. Okay. So I'll give you an example here, okay, for you to really understand. Now, there is a lot of definitions of mental health, but the one that I have here is by the World Health Organization. Okay, so when I show this definition to my students, they'll be like, "Oh, this is the definition of mental health," and I said, "Yes, this is the definition of mental health by World Health Organization." So it says here is that is a state of well-being, all right, which is resilience is part of that, in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities. You know what you want, you know what you want to do, you know that you are a postgraduate student, you want to get your papers done, you want to grad with your PhD, and then can cope with the normal stresses of life. We're going to talk about that later, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his, her, or her community. So what that means is that mental health is not only here, but also how you want to use your own knowledge, you want to use your own research, per se, in this kind of scope, so that you can contribute to your community. All right. I'll give you another example. Because I am in the committee of human research ethics, right, in UPSI, and we also sometimes there are times that we also evaluated international students, researchers, and most of the time the research is also revolving about their own countries. So it got to us thinking that, oh, maybe they also have to do some contribution, like what is it actually for Malaysia too? Maybe not only, for example, China, maybe not only for UAE, but like how can your contribution in China can help Malaysia? All right. We're not asking like to come up with specific objectives just like that, but what can it brings and gives back to Malaysia per se. Okay. And because of that, okay, just the definition of mental health also is related with psychological distress and then well-being. Again, well-being, the resilience will be part of it. Now, when we talk about resilience too, we also have to know about burnout. So usually burnout is always related with the competency and very much is different than stress. I mean, again, like I mentioned, some of you might have known this as well, but stress doesn't cause burnout. That is what we have to know. And stress is inevitable. You're going to have it like every single day, right? When a person tells me that, oh, I'm having stress today, I do not want to be stressed. Maybe what you want to say is that this is a stress. You acknowledge that there's going to be a stress in terms of the research or the papers that you're working on, for example, or maybe like the problem that you are facing when you want to collect your data, for example. But then you need to know how you want to manage it. Okay, make an ease. We always pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make things ease. Okay, because stress is something that daily life, like inevitable, things like that. But why burnout can occur most of the time, or they say that is because of they don't have support. And what actually the Postgraduate Center of IIUM is doing now is amazingly helpful, right? They're trying to actually educate the postgraduate students and see how like they can actually help. They give trainings, so you're aware about this, okay? Because I know that for postgraduate students, pretty much you guys are, most of the time are independent. You don't really have classes, right? So yeah. Okay. Like I mentioned way earlier as well, mature students, okay, you need to juggle up between your careers, perhaps if you're still working, and then with your family commitment, with your spouse at the same time, maybe also with your academic as well. So this is where that you need to be aware of and try to find ways how to actually address that. When you're able to do that, you need to know about the resiliency as well. So resiliency is not about just being strong. It's because it's about that there are challenges within you or surrounding you, and then this cannot be prevented, but you will try to bounce back. That is what pretty much resilient is. The next one, the crisis would be their precarity and then funding gaps, as well as environmental footprints of research. Now, I know that nowadays, I think it's one of the trends in academic world to have research about green. So let's try to also, you know, practice that. I know it's gonna be like difficult for some of us that are quite old, you know, but let's try to do that, you know. Make sure that your even innovations, your research process, your work activities are applying the green principles here. Okay. Now, that's something to share with you. This is the one of the issues that I remember that we were talking to. We were actually having this discussion back in when I was in Leipzig in Germany, and me and my advisor and my peers at that time we're just talking. We're just like, oh, now we have to pay a lot to get our papers, you know, seen or referred to. And on top of that, before that, we actually have to, you know, apply for a research grant. Now we actually have to pay more. So, what are we then? Okay. So please don't be worried about it. Like every single one actually having the same problem. Even when I was in Germany, and we know that, you know, Germany is a developed country. But this is somehow that, you know, have to think about it, and which is actually very much related with the impact that I'm going to tell you later, in such a way that if I'm not mistaken, because I'm also the chief editor for one of the journals in UPSI, and if I'm not mistaken, that even what we are trying to do right now is that we also want our students, even the lecturers themselves, to also cite journals that are indexed in my site, not only in Scopus or Web of Science. Okay. Now, let's have a look at the sustainable academia. So what could sustainable academic look like, right? Well, what we want it to be, what we expect it to be, what we believe that we can try to contribute to shape the sustainable academic, right? So the first one is that we have to value collaboration over competition. You know, rather than before the old days in which that, you know, there is this competition between, you know, researchers or even postgraduate students with different backgrounds or whatever. And then there's huge competitions about it, but at the end, what actually you can bring into the table, right? That matters. Number two, we have to also foster the depth over speed. What does it mean by depth over speed is that I know it's something like easy for me to say than done, but we pretty much have to try to make sure that the research or the paper that we have to do is that brings great impact to the community, have high contribution by making sure that it is very well detailed to be seen, right? Although that, yes, unfortunately, the performance appraisal, the KPI requires you to publish and all, like every single year, maybe one or two papers need to be done. But this is one of the things, you know, when you know, just craze for publication, publish here, publish there, but then it's pretty much nothing. Or maybe to some extent, you have that a bulk of data and you just try to cut it right into pieces and then publish them, but they're pretty much not that impactful, or if I can say, it's meaningless. So let's try to go for depth over speed. Okay. But of course, then you might argue, well, Dr. Nurul, this is where we need to be strategized, okay? Because if we want to go for the details, we want to go for in-depth explanation, we want to go for good journals, and it's going to take time, then we are not able to finish and then complete our PhDs, right? But yeah, this is what, you know, sustainable academic look like. This is what we want. We do not want our, you know, younger generation to you know, to enjoy or to get the inputs that is not impactful. Okay. The third one is that open access and shared knowledge. I remember there was this one time I went to these one workshops, And in one of these public universities, this very prominent professor, I'm pretty sure if I tell you guys the name of this professor, some of you will definitely know him. But anyway, he was telling me that, oh, Nurul, the lecturers are not really in Malaysia, are not really flexible to share knowledge. I guess to some extent, some of them are, from my experience. And I know the reason being because maybe they are worried that their thunder is gonna be taken by other people. Or maybe because, in a world of academia itself, for lecturers, for example, we have to be opportunist. There's no other way. Like if you want to strive, you want to proceed, like our appraisal is always on performance, okay? But when we talk about sustainable academic, of course, obviously we want to have the shared knowledge. And this is the reason why we want to have the sharing sessions, experience taught, so we can actually, compare and contrast with ourselves too. All right. And the next one would be inclusive, supportive academic environments. Now, I'm going to talk about it later on as well, but when we talk about supportive, this is very much needed. And I'm pretty sure IUM is great about this. The fact that, they will actually give you a certain amount of money for for your publication, for example. And then maybe you want to try to make sure that when you want to do your research, you also want to generalize it, not only for the benefits of a certain group. Okay, so sustainable academic, it should be very fair. And again, like I mentioned way earlier, it's about the equity as well. So we have, under the academic sustainability, we have intellectual sustainability. So like I mentioned earlier, sustainability of ideas. So actually the ideas are very, very, very much valuable, right? Otherwise, they don't have this called IP, intellectual pattern or intellectual property, because some people have great ideas that can bring, not even profits to them, but also achievements and then again, the contribution to the community. So the first one under intellectual sustainability is that, I'm just gonna always look at the, the time there. The first one is that valuing slow scholarship. Now, like I mentioned, this might be an unpopular opinion, but we have to understand why, there are people have different pace. And I have to be transparent here in such a way that because I try my best not to submit my papers to journals that I don't have to pay. In my opinion, because for journals that doesn't actually ask you for money, not only that I don't have to pay that money, but number two is that I have the possibility or higher probability to get cited more. Okay. And because of that, I have to wait for almost a year to get the reviews back, which is in comparison with my coworkers who just submit their papers to the paid ones, although it's also a high index, and then they get like, maybe 6 months acceptance or even less, right? So the sustainability of this, we also have to value slow scholarships. And number two, encouraging long-term thinking. Now, oh, again, this is culture also plays into a role. I do not want to categorize it. I don't really like enjoy of having that, although I'm pretty sure majority of you knows about Hofstede's cultural dimensions in such a way that, for example, they say Malaysia is one of the countries that always well, not only adapt to uncertainty, but also is focusing on short-term gain, right? Like I mentioned earlier, the example that I gave earlier, in which that, oh, I want to get my paper published fast, so only like 6 months and then get it, and I don't really mind of paying this much money or get cited more, right? So for the sustainability of ideas under intellectual sustainability, we also encourage the long-term thinking. What is it in 10 years from now, in 20 years from now? I remember that I think like 5 years ago, we were thinking about, hey, let's try to find out more about cybersecurity. maybe it was not that huge of a big deal back then, but it is now, right? Scammers are everywhere, mall frauds are everywhere, and we need that. Okay. So number 3 is supporting interdisciplinary work. I'm pretty sure you guys know this. For me as a psychologist too, I do some collaborations with the artificial intelligence people. I do collaborations with the leaders, management as well. So we need to have that interdisciplinary work. I'm looking at the time, just don't want to make sure that it's more than 1 hour. Okay, and the second one, we have social and institutional sustainability. All right, so this is the human side of it. Now we know that, we can say that she's all brain, things like that, but let's have a look more in terms of the human side. Well, number 1 is mentorship over gatekeeping. I'm pretty sure in IIUM you guys have this, but in UPSI, for example, I think just recently they do have this like mentorship going on for early career researchers, or for us, more into the junior lecturers, right? So these junior lecturers are assigned with specific prominent lecturers in UPSI, and I can see that it's quite doing well. Okay, when we talk about mentorship here, and those of you in education field and psychology counseling field, you guys know about this, how important it is for you to you know share the knowledge, not only share the knowledge, but important for you to have a mentor that you can refer to. I'll give you an example. Although that people tells me that, oh, you're already good, you're associate professors, you should be able to do this certain kind of things, but there are things that I always need to improve myself. So for example, when we talk about a mentorship here, I want to know, like just yesterday, wallahi, I just know that, oh, this is how you are able to play the game of citation. So for example, like a friend of mine, he's from chemistry field, and he was like telling, oh, Nurul, you actually have to make sure that this paper as well have to get cited, not only the highest one, but also this one, the lower ones. Otherwise, your citation H index will not get high. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, right? So it's good that he wants to share his knowledge. And it's just proven that, mentorship works. And no, you do not want a gatekeeping, right? We don't do that. Oh, okay, at least we have to try not to do it. Okay, number 2, fair access to opportunities. Everyone must have the same, opportunity to get a grant. Everyone must have the opportunity, just like, what the IIM do, like everyone can have the access to listen to my beautiful voice, just kidding, but, to enjoy this sharing session that I have. And everyone must have the same, treatments or support systems in IUM. These things are very much needed because we already have to struggles, for our academic journey, and then also with our other commitments. So, when we are not being rewarded fairly, it will just gonna give like, influencing the maladaptive behaviors later on. And number 3 is rethinking performance metrics. I know that, again, it's like easy to say than done. This is very much like the policymakers or the decision makers are the one that actually have to say about it. But then they will always like, kind of like inform me that, hey, Nurul, we actually have to publish in a university. There's no other way that you do not want to publish. You have to publish. You have to publish in a very good journals. If you don't do that, students, especially international students, probably do not even bother to come to our universities. But when you do the rethinking performance metrics, you can actually maybe, keep whatever the interest of the institutions, but at the same time, you must think about the capabilities or struggles, or even how the students, right? Specifically, and even the staff at that particular institutions, how they're able to, balance it well, and at the same time try to address and achieve the performance metrics too. Okay, now this is the one that I want to show earlier. as you can see here, can cope with the normal stress of life, can cope with the normal stress of life. Now, again, if you are a psychology student or counseling student or education student, you might know this, or even some other students in other fields also know it. But like I mentioned earlier, is how you cope with your normal stress. Okay, so you maybe again you might know this, although you don't know that there's actually theories behind it. Well, this is actually theories by Lazarus, in terms of how you want to solve or cope the problems. Now, I'm not here to actually let you guys know or maybe teach you about psychology, specifically stress, but I want to say is that if we are able to cope it well, all right, then inshallah, okay, we are able to somehow buffering the stresses out, because like I mentioned, stress is inevitable, right? So the first one is that problem focused coping, okay, in which that you want to change or amend your source of stress. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, mentorship, remember? So when you know that your particular friend, for example, have a problem in terms of her research, right? She's not able to get data, or she's not able to commute very well with the supervisors, right? So you are there to help her out by what? By just being there, by just listening to her problems and asking what's going on, can I help, can I do this? But because sometimes, especially women, okay, we don't really need solutions. We just need someone to hear us out. Okay, so I might be wrong about this, but I know that women usually do that. Well, stereotypically, that's not really healthy, but majority of the women, maybe they do that. They already know what they're gonna do, but they just want to be heard and that people know about their struggles, right? The next one would be emotion focused copying. Now, this is the time when I told you that you know what is your problem, like, but there's no other way. There's no way that you can actually change it. But what you can do is that you just change perception. That's pretty much what you can do. By letting go. Why I remember letting go, I was like thinking, oh, the Frozen song, Letting Go. Anyway, letting go, diverting the attention, or managing status of health. And I know some of you guys might be an expert on this too. Like, you know that you have to release hormones, certain, then get dopamine hormones, okay, when you do your jogging, or when you have some doing journalings, because we also need that, okay? But sometimes, of course, we don't have time for it as well. Okay, I have 10 more minutes. Yeah, so that would be about coping. So this is also a reminder for me that the best of people are those who benefit others. So, like I mentioned, if we don't have the monetary support to give to those people that have some problems or issues, like our postgraduate students, right? Then what we can do is that, we just be there and helping them out. Because again, remember, resilience. Resilience is not about you don't have that challenges, you don't have that issues, but you bounce back from that hurdles, being stronger than before, being the best version of yourself. So the last one under the academic sustainability is the green academia. So I'm pretty sure that you guys know this, in which that nowadays you can see there are many conferences that are implemented virtually or even hybrid. And one of them is our webinar, our sharing session here is also virtual. Sustainable lab practices. This is not only revolving on lab physically per se, but also in terms of the research field. Remember that I told you that if the research, for example, has been done before, then why do we need to come up with another one? Well, you might say because we want to replicate it with another set of respondents, which, acceptable, okay, on one hand, but you need to provide like meaningful impact. Why there is a need for replications. And I still remember this, and from Associate Professor Dr. Siti when in USM. I think she's already retired, yes. And the third one would be digital overprint where possible. for us, the ones with four eyes, actually I'm wearing contacts now. Yeah, sometimes we also need these, right? The hard copy versions, but let's try to reduce it, okay? If we are able to. So now let's go to the designing for resilience then. Well, we talk about sustainable scholarships. We talk about how we want to shape for the one that we, aim it to be, how we're able to have that by looking into account the challenges, the crisis that we have, what the support that can be given to build up, you know, our dream. So let's have a look at the resilience. Now, if you remember, I mentioned as well that, and I'm pretty sure in IIUM too, the PhD students, right? You must, have your own immediate family already. And if you don't, you must have your parents too, or your other commitment, right? And then you have your children, and maybe some of the PhD students or master students are doing this part-time. And then, like, if all these stressors, now we're going to talk about stressors, are all adding up and there is no way to cope, then this is where it can, lead to mental illness. Now, we need to strive this by, how to know how to cope then well. So then we'll be able to bounce back. And this is where the resilience comes in. So the first one is that what we need to understand is that the outputs, your PhD results or your master results, is not the only one that matters. What matters the most is that you enjoy the work process, you cherish the work, values that you have. So when you have that, then you can actually see that, oh, okay, this is the one that I want. I'm able to collected data in Malaysia. Although the data, although the respondents were in Dubai, for example, yay, congratulations to me, and then you should celebrate that. Trust me about this. All these small steps, we have to enjoy them and celebrate them. Okay, like I mentioned, not only the results matter, but the journey as well. I know it sounds like very cliche, it's like very easy for me to say, but it's the real deal. And especially when we talk about 3 years and 4 years, the journey is like long, right? I remember when I was in Germany, it was 4 years and I was pretty much alone at that time. So Alhamdulillah, thank you a lot that I have some support system from my international friends whom I miss dearly. Okay, so yeah, cherish the work process. And then the next one is that holistic funding models. Now, again, when we talk about institutions, it will be quite difficult to say because these are actually under the jurisdiction of the policymakers, the top management. But what we can actually hope and what we actually can do is that there will be like a holistic funding models in which that they also gonna have a look as well that not only research that is considered trending will give sort of like recognition, for example, in terms of a monetary value, but also those who actually have significant impact. Okay, and you want to understand about the purpose and then perspective as well. I'll give you an example, right? I still have 3 minutes. I'll give you an example. I attended this one sharing session about disability people. And at that time, the person in charge came to us. He's one of the policymakers in Malaysia about OKU or disability people, and he said that on every universities they must be research about autism, okay? But when they give to us, and then that would be that those are the results. And then next, so what? Then what is next? What is after that? Okay, so yeah, like this university, that university, they have this research about autism, but then what can actually Malaysia gain from that? And then what can we do about it? What would be the long-term thinking, long-term planning about our disability people, the autism people? So at that time only that we can realize, understand that, oh, they just maybe want to chase or strive for the trending topics, but what would be the value that they, would bring into the table? And number 3 is well-being as a metric. Now, Alhamdulillah, I think in UPSI, in UPSI, they have this also one kind of like award for university that happiness university. I know it's like pretty much nothing, but it's a great start, right? In which that well-being of the staff is also plays a huge role and should be celebrated as well. Okay. After all, I always tell this not because I'm organizational psychologist, but we humans are the valuable asset in the organization. And in terms of the research, right? We're the one actually that, proceed and then make the necessary actions to move forward. So what it says here is that academia doesn't need to be a pressure cooker to produce billions, all right? Now, oh, there's more. Alamak. Sorry, maybe 2 or 3 more minutes. I forgot there's more slides. So what is your role? Okay, so why are you here? Why these sharing sessions have to be done with the postgraduate students? Well, the first one, you have to know your values. What do you want? What actually that you feel is important? Is it integrity, being the ones with high level of integrity? Is it the one that can be trusted? Is it the one that have high ethical in terms of research? Is it going to be the one that have being a great team player, for example? All right, you have to know your values. Number 2, I mentioned well before about the resilient of yourself. So now let's build resilient communities. So not only us, but let's try our friends back with the support that can be given to them. Let's have that. This is journey together. We can do this together. Right. And number 3, you want to advocate for change. Now that change is also inevitable. We cannot run away from change, but what we can do, we need to embrace it and then learn it. If I can say that, people always say that, oh, I don't want, yeah, I want change. I want change in this organization. I want the top management to be changed. But then when people ask you, do you want to be changed? And you be like, no, I don't want to change myself. This is me. If you want to talk to me, you have to, understand me. People can say that. But what I want to say is that if you're ready for change, you also need to be ready and prepared to somehow change slowly by yourself too. And being a person then that cultivate sustainable scholarship would be your value then. All right, like I mentioned, what is your value? Like for this experiment, in my opinion, it is successful on one hand, but it brings high impact psychologically to these respondents, right? And then if you know about Little Albert experiment, poor Albert, right? You'll be upset about it too. Okay, this is by Watson. Again, education people, you must know this, but this is another experiment. A grain might be successful in terms of what is conditioning, what is behaviorism. But then, how about our Albert? Okay, was he okay now? So I don't want to go into detail about this, but I just know that this is something that you always have to think, hey, should I do this to get my achievement, or should I think about the ethical perspective, which is the value that I uphold? All right. So again, what will I contribute? Okay. And how can you contribute? So we need to remember this and think about this if we want to contribute somehow only a little bit in terms of building up the field of sustainable scholarship. Okay, so I'm just end this sessions with the excerpt from Al-Baqarah. He grants wisdom to whom he wills, and whoever has been granted wisdom has certainly been given much good. All right, so I guess that's for me. Yeah, I'm able to do it for 1 hour. Okay, so let's over to you. We're gonna have questions and answer sessions, right?
Yes, Doctor. Thank you so much, Dr. Nurul Ain, for that insightful and fruitful discussion. We will now move on to the Q&A session. So dear participants, if you have any question, you can type it out in the chat box and I will read it accordingly, or you can unmute yourself so you can ask directly with Dr. Nurul Ain. So, okay, we did have several questions in the chat box. The first one is how to avoid the falsified articles and data.
Well, okay, thanks, Sharifa. So how to avoid falsified articles and data? Well, the first one is that I don't realize that. Do you mean that how to avoid you yourself falsify the articles and data, or finding the falsified articles and data? But what if I can see this question, I think it might mean how to avoid falsified articles and data. Is that if you're talking about your own self, is that you want to make sure that whenever that you have your own data, okay, at a time when you have your own data, then the only information that you need to produce is coming out from your own data. You do not want to generalize it to other scope area research scope or area of your interest. Like for example, maybe you just did your research on maybe only on Malaysians, and then suddenly you're talking about, oh, this is actually also similar what's happened in in Oman, for example. That actually would be one of the case. And I would say that sometimes the students perhaps did not know that they did it wrong, but it actually bring a huge impact if, for example, you as postgraduate students, who I believe will perhaps eventually present your data later on in a conference perhaps, or back in your institutions, and then people will believe you. This is what I always tell to my students or psychologists. I was like, okay, you have to make sure that whatever that's coming out from your mouth or whatever information that coming out from your little mouth must be very accurate. So just to answer that question, how to avoid falsified articles and data for your own research, I would say just, explain and try to have the implication discussion, limitation just only from your own data. Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Also answered the question from Brother Alarus, I think. Next, we have the question from Brother Muhammad Kasif Majid. He asks about if we had published a lot of articles, then how can we apply for scholarship? I don't know how can this relate.
Yeah, I also do not know how to answer that. And Muhammad Kasif, I also do not know
Maj
where are you. Oh, Kasif, right?
yes, Kasif
Okay.
Majid.
Yeah, Kasif Majid. I also don't know where you're from, but let me give you some tips, not about scholarships, but tips about scholarships, but I mean, like not related with articles. I know, but what you can do, I'm giving you all around tips now. Go to the website of DAAD. That is actually German, Deutschland. I don't remember the full name, but Germany is quite generous in terms of giving scholarships, so you want to give it a try. And especially those countries who are third world countries, you have the possibility more to earn scholarships if you want to pursue your studies. Okay, Sharifa?
Yes, okay. I think that should be answering the question from Brother Kasif. Next, we have a question from Brother Tahmid Alam about the issue of burnout. Okay, what would you as a lecturer suggest to do for being productive again?
For me is that because burnout is actually happened when it's always related with competency, and usually it's a work burnout. And what they want to do is that you want to know how to address the problems. You need to know how can you get support for that. How can you cope with that? For example, if you have a lot of works to do, and then there's a lot of like deadlines that need to be met. So one of the things that you want to try is that you have to try to delegate the works, right? Either to your subordinates or to your peers. That would be one of them. And another one is actually what I think students also have to know. I think few years back, burnout is this is the clinically burnout is also considered as one of the mental illness. So what I mean is that if what actually happening is only symptoms of burnout, it still can be addressed and then get some assistance like from the social environment. But then if it is already like clinically diagnosed, this is where that particular individual has to either see, psychologist or no psychiatrist or clinical psychologist, or even, in my opinion, worse is taking medications. Okay, so to have that particular symptoms, like symptoms of depression, symptoms of burnout, then you want to try to resolve them by maybe seek mental health professionals, and that's it. But then if it's already been diagnosed as clinically mental illness, then that's where that you really have to maybe step back and then give yourself the rest and recovery that you need, and then try to address the problem well. To them, like I mentioned, to some extent, you might have to take medication, right? So you want to take care of that first. Look at the symptoms. Okay.
All right, Nathan. We have kind of like similar questions from
Okay.
Brother Hafiz Ibrahim, which he asked about the remedies of burnout. But I think you already answered the questions from your slide, so from previous questions. Um, Before that, do we have any other questions from the participants? You can unmute yourself, or I have a question, Madam, from myself. Um, how can we make sure that our research, our publications, that we have, for sure, our research for PhD master students, we have like this theory or frameworks that we wanted for it to be executed, right? So especially for the social sciences, like the Islamic studies or religious studies, it's kind of like very difficult for us to make sure for our theories, our frameworks to be implemented. So it's kind of like, oh, we are just doing our masters and PhD is kind of like meaningless if we cannot make sure that our research or our framework being executed.
Okay, thank you, Sharifa, for the question. Oh, that is a very great question. You know why? 3 days ago, I was talking to this one of Deputy Dean of Research and Innovation in UPSI, and his area is actually in Sirah, if I'm not mistaken. And then he said that is definitely, I mean, like, not he basically say or answer the question because he doesn't know the answers, the question. But then he said that he knows that the contribution things or that he can give is he's sharing knowledge with the community. All right. So we need to remember as well that all of us are different. Some people, some of us who are actually chemists or physicians that are working in labs, they are maybe revolving themselves with those labs. But for us, like the psychologists, for example, with the community, but the same thing goes with the SIRA as well. That's number one. And number two, I do know one of the researchers or lecturer in UPSI, whose area is also in Islamic studies, but he's also able to achieve quite high H index and publish in very good journals, good journal articles. So I know for sure that there are journals articles out there that you can submit your papers to if you want. But yeah, like I mentioned, please don't feel down on yourself, because I was talking to him 2 or 3 days ago. I was talking to him about Mutawif actually, because we plan to go to Umrah every year. So we were talking, and he was like, yeah, we are quite different. We are not really much, having high H index and all. But then I believe that our contribution is goes back to the community, to those people that want to go to pilgrimage and then also Umrah. So we also have our own, roles as well in terms of sustainable leadership and sustainable academic. Yes.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ain, for the answers. I think it's kind of like release some of it's kind of like stress, it's kind of like expectations. So it's kind of like we as a master PhD student, we kind of like expected, especially for the Islamic student, why should you pursue Islamic studies in the postgraduate level if your research could not be seen by anyone? So that is kind of like the expectation.
Yeah, but it's
So
definitely, oh, no. I think I read somewhere, please, students can correct me if I'm wrong. Like one of the group of people that inshallah I don't know if I should say, but go, the ones that actually having highly praise is those actually in Islamic studies. So please don't feel, down on yourselves. You guys have all your own contributions. In UPSI, for example, we have 4 tracks of promotions, I would say. So if you want to, maybe for example, from doctor and you want to be a associate professor, to professor, so you can choose which 4 tracks of promotions that you want to do. So maybe in terms of teaching, in terms of research, or in terms of leadership, or in terms of just awam or general. So obviously, if you feel, I'm just talking how that, UPSI, for example, really value each one of us, is that they know, oh, if you cannot actually, if you want to get promoted, but if you're not able to get promoted with research, good research, for example, then we can actually value your expertise using this track, which is awam or general. Do you get what I mean now? So that means we try to value own strength, but then it has to, get back with the sustainable or scholarship there. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Nurul Ain, for your insightful answers. So, Doctor, will it be possible for us to get a copy of your slides so we can share it with the participants?
Yes, I will. Yep.
All right. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we have reached to the end of today's session. So we extend our deepest gratitude to Associate Professor Dr. Nurul Ain Hidayah for her valuable insights. A very big thank you for all the participants for your active engagement. We hope this session have been beneficial and will contribute to your academic pursuit. So before we end, we kindly request all of the participants to fill in the feedback form, which will be shared in the chat box. Your feedback is highly appreciated. Once again, thank you for joining us. May we continue to seek and share knowledge for the betterment of our academic and personal life. With that, I bid you all Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Assalamualaikum. Oh, and Eid Mubarak. I forgot to actually wish that. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Bye.